and I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
You'll benefit from better care provided by our NHS thanks to the reallocation of funds from the EU budget. Controlled immigration will lead to reduced waiting times for you and your loved ones.
Are you going to do anything about the ambulances waiting and the people dying out? Well, don't you think 12 years is long enough?
Yes, and we are.
12 years, you've done bugger all about it.
No.
People have died and all you've done is nothing.
Excess funding that would otherwise be sent to Brussels could also be directed to education, meaning better prospects for your children. Now in Brexit Britain, classrooms may be full of students, but we are struggling to fill them full of teachers for maths, science and language subjects. So we will do the opposite of what we promised and fill our classrooms with international recruits. From countries like India, Jamaica and Nigeria, because Leave EU was so desperate to win, we were willing to say anything that got your vote. To lure these teachers over, we will have to bribe them with £10,000. And initially, we will offer this to 400 teachers. Here is a teacher explaining the real problem.
I think this pilot kind of is the wrong, we're talking about wrong priorities here. The priority needs to be to reduce workload for staff, reduce class sizes, increase pay for all teachers and support staff and ensure that schools are fully funded, because that's what's going to start to actually address this crisis.
Your wages will rise thanks to better controlled immigration, which will lead to less competition for jobs. Your weekly food shop will become cheaper. Food prices will no longer be inflated by agricultural policies controlled by the EU. The problem is you don't get much for £1 in Brexit Britain. Just listen to all of these shoppers.
It's just everything you look at's gone up. Everything. It's frightening.
Very dear, very dear. Everything going up.
We have to watch what we spend on that, and plus, if we haven't got any money, we've got to do without.
We've had to walk away from buying stock because it's too dear.
It was a little easier before, but it's not easier at the moment in time.
Here is an expert explaining the economic damage to a Decepticon.
I think there are nevertheless issues to do with Brexit which have to do mostly with the fact that we have got barriers in terms of trade. It's not so much tariffs, but it is much more difficult to bring things in and also to send things out. So, and also, in addition, we have had a shortage of labour. Yes, of course, many more migrants are coming now, but in reality, quite a lot of the sectors where the EU workers were very prominent, such as hospitality, for example, the tourism sector, construction, they have been sort of bled dry of workers, and there's been a real shortage as a result.
And yet, Vicky Price, net migration figures are eye-watering. They're almost 3 times what they were before Brexit.
Yes, but as I said, the people coming in are not necessarily going to do those jobs. It's mainly skilled, high-skilled people who are coming in, which is actually good news in many ways, but quite a lot of the workers who are coming from the EU may have been quite skilled themselves in terms of the education they had, but they were coming to help in areas where the skills were not necessarily needed. So that has gone, which has meant that staff shortages in the UK have been worse than elsewhere. And one of the reasons why wage demands have been greater as well, because, of course, it has been sensed very easily that there is a demand there and it needs to be paid for by whoever it is who's hiring people.
You and your family will benefit from a resurgent economy.
Britain's economy has staggered since the financial crisis over a decade ago in 2008, with weak productivity and low pay. Recently, it lost its position as the world's 5th largest economy to India. The past few months have been rough for the United Kingdom. National inflation has exceeded double digits. The longest-serving British monarch has passed away. The shortest-serving Prime Minister has resigned.
Led by new and flourishing small businesses, following the removal of burdensome EU regulations and red tape.
Unfortunately, because of the UK not being associated with the Horizon Europe Framework Programme, we had to give up that coordinator role and transfer the project over to Italy.
Japanese multinational Sony has decided to move its European headquarters out of the UK to the Netherlands. Sony's rival Panasonic had also shifted its base out of Britain last August, to avoid potential tax issues that may be caused by Brexit. Appliance maker Dyson also announced that it was planning to move its headquarters to Singapore.
With less pressure on housing, younger generations will also find it easier to get on the housing ladder.
Just give us the perspective from your generation.
Well, not only am I priced out by Liam, but I also grew up as a young carer. So there is absolutely nobody that wants to see social care properly funded more than I do. But there is just no way that it's fair to ask young people to give up more of their income to protect the housing wealth of older people. Resolution Foundation research suggests that a third of millennials will be renting from the cradle to the grave. 60% of private renters have absolutely no savings whatsoever. You know, there are not 250,000 households a year ready, willing and able to buy homes at current unaffordable prices.
Rents in England have risen 5.1% in the last year, with increases as high as 20% in some areas. Section 21 orders, so-called no-fault evictions, where landlords don't have to give a reason, have soared to more than 6,000 every quarter. And more than half of landlords seeking to evict say it's because they want to sell or re-let their property.
Politicians, both local and national, will become more accountable, helping to strengthen your community and others. Except, according to UK law and the parliamentary website, an elected MP has no right to resign. Unless they die or are expelled, they must become disqualified if they wish to retire before the end of a parliament.
Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister without a single member's vote or a vote from the public. No one has voted for him to be in that job.
And other examples of MPs refusing to resign, such as Nadine Dorries, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. What we also failed to mention in this advert is that Parliament is sovereign, which allows us to have almost the same level of power as an authoritarian state, to remove your right to protest, to play music, to be annoying, to block investigating pedophiles connected to the monarchy, to limit the power of the courts, and to stop any form of constitution, whilst also having multiple areas of government which you can't elect, such as the head of state, the Lords, the Supreme Court, and even the Prime Minister, only allowing you to have a say once every 5 years, unless you are rich and donate to the party in power. Thank you, Putin's friends.
Merkel and his businesses have donated to almost 1 in every 10 Conservative MPs. Nigel Adams, Karen Bradley, Robert Buckland, Conor Burns, Alan Cairns, Simon Clarke, James Davies, Michael Ellis, Liam Fox, Mark Garnier, Robert Halfon, Simon Hart, Chris Heaton-Harris, Jeremy Hunt, Brandon Lewis, Jason McCartney, David Morris, Joy Morrissey, Cheryl Murray, Andrew Percy, Mark Pritchard, Tom Pursglove, Will Quince, Mary Robinson, Alok Sharma, Chris Skidmore, Ian Stewart, Rishi Sunak, Justin Tomlinson, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, Martin Vickers, Robin Walker, Craig Whittaker, and John Whittingdale.
Those most damaged by EU policies, like farming.
The lamb has been coming over from New Zealand by the ton, tons and tons of it, and unfortunately the last 2 weeks the trade in the local markets has just been hit by a rock. We're probably £15-20 per lamb down.
Some, off camera, say they regret their vote, missing EU subsidies and easier access to the European single market.
Can we talk a little bit specifically about Brexit? Did it bring you back greater control, or have you lost a lot through it?
No, to be quite honest with you, it destroyed our market.
Fishing.
Fishing was the reason he voted for Brexit. The reality, he says, is not what was promised.
The deal we got was very, very poor. Very poor. So I probably would change my vote if I'm honest.
And industries like steel.
But orders have slowed in recent months, particularly from Europe. In response, the company pinpointed the uncertainties around Brexit.
A more prosperous and safer future awaits us inside the EU. A vote to rejoin is a vote for a brighter future for you, your family, and your community.
The Rejoin EU Party does exist, and I'll put a link in the description. If you've gone this far, please click that like and subscribe button, it really helps the channel. And to all my patrons and YouTube members, you're awesome. You keep this channel going and growing. Thanks for listening, bye for now.